She stood there in front of a dozen people and laughed. Actually laughed, before saying, loud enough for everyone to hear, "I should have chosen Mark. At least he knew how to treat a woman." Everyone froze. A couple of guests pretended not to stare. Someone tried to choke back a laugh. And me? I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just looked at her, then reached for my phone. And in that instant, her smile cracked. "If you think this story is going somewhere you expect, trust me, you have no idea. Before I tell you everything, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and leave a comment. It helps the channel more than you know." Now let me take you to the beginning of that night. It started quietly, almost painfully normal. I'd worked a full day at the automotive shop. My hands still smelled faintly of engine grease even after 2 washes. My wife, Linda, had insisted we attend her younger cousin's engagement party. A backyard setup in one of those newly renovated houses in the suburbs, string lights, a rented bar, overpriced catered sliders, and music just loud enough to keep people from noticing awkward conversations that I'd hoped for something simple. Smile, congratulate the happy couple, maybe slip out early. But Linda was already tense when we arrived. Too much energy in her eyes. Too much wine in her hand before the sun had even set. She was laughing a little too loudly at other men's jokes, brushing imaginary lint off her dress like she wanted every eye on her. I kept my distance, letting her perform whatever scene she needed to perform. I'd grown used to it. Inside the patio tent, people milled around talking about work promotions, real estate, yoga retreats, everything polished and shiny. I stayed by the drink table, nursing a Coke because I had work early in the morning. Linda, meanwhile, flitted from group to group like a restless bird, touching shoulders, leaning in too close, her laughter filling the air in these short, sharp bursts. I tried to blend into the background, listening to the clinking glasses and soft chatter, but I could feel something off with her. She kept glancing my way with this simmering impatience, like she was waiting for me to disappoint her. Again, then it happened. Her cousin's fiancé, Travis, was talking to me about trucks, and out of nowhere Linda slid over, wine glass in hand, eyes bright with something I couldn't read. She wrapped one arm around Travis's neck, too friendly, and said, "You know, Travis reminds me of someone I dated before I made a mistake." The people around us perked up. I felt the air shift. "Who?" someone asked, half laughing. Linda flicked her eyes at me, her mouth curling like she was about to drop a punchline. "Mark," she said, tossing her hair. "My ex. He knew how to make life exciting. I should have married him instead." A couple of women gasped and then tried to pretend they hadn't. A guy chuckled into his drink. Travis slid out from under her arm, suddenly uncomfortable. The music seemed quieter, even though I'm sure it wasn't that I didn't move. Didn't blink. That I just watched her. And for the first time, she realized how many people were listening. She kept talking, rambling, throwing little jabs like she was performing a monologue she'd practiced in her head for months. "I mean, look at me now," she said, gesturing at me as if I wasn't 5 feet away. I settled down instead of living. "And Mark? He's probably somewhere doing something amazing." The embarrassment radiated through the tent like heat from a grill. I could feel eyes bouncing between us, the quiet sympathy for me, the stunned disbelief at her audacity. But I still didn't say a word, because while everyone assumed I'd either snap or walk away in shame, I reached calmly into my jacket pocket. Linda noticed. Her voice cracked mid-laugh. She stared at my hand like she'd suddenly remembered something she desperately hoped I didn't know. That I pulled out my phone slowly, deliberately, letting the moment stretch tight around her. Her wine glass trembled. "Tom," she whispered, "don't." I didn't answer. That I didn't need to. The silence around us grew so loud it swallowed the music, and that was the night everything changed. I didn't press anything on my phone. I didn't raise my voice or demand anyone's attention. I simply held it in my hand, screen down, like a man who'd finally decided he was done being the quiet, convenient accessory in his own marriage. Linda stared at it, as if it were a weapon pointed straight at her. and for the first time in months, she stopped talking. A few people shifted awkwardly, unsure whether to stay or drift off. Travis cleared his throat and muttered something about checking on the grill before slipping away. The others soon followed, each pretending they needed to be somewhere else, leaving just Linda and me under the pale yellow lights of the patio tent. She breathed fast, the earlier confidence completely drained out of her. "Tom," she said quietly, "can we not do this here?" Her voice shook in that familiar way she used whenever she realized she had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. I finally looked at her, really looked at her, her trembling hands, her wine-stained lips, the mix of fear and defiance swirling in her eyes. Part of me wanted to ask why she needed to humiliate me in front of half her family. Another part of me didn't care anymore. "I'm just standing here," I said. "You're the one who wanted an audience." She winced. "I didn't mean it like that." "You meant it exactly like that." She reached for my arm, but I stepped back before she touched me. Her face tightened, as if that tiny rejection stung more than anything else that night. "Can we go talk somewhere private?" she whispered. "You've had all evening to talk to me," I said. "You chose to talk to everyone else instead." She blinked hard, as if trying to hold back tears. I didn't buy it. I'd seen her cry on command more times than I could count. I walked past her and stepped out of the tent, heading toward the far corner of the yard where a dim garden light cast long shadows across the grass. I needed air. I needed distance. I needed to think. The conversations behind me buzzed back to life, but quieter now, cautious. People were pretending not to look at us, but doing a terrible job of it. I could feel their eyes trailing after me. A couple of Linda's aunts stood near the buffet table, whispering behind their cups. One of her cousins nudged another and nodded in my direction. So be it. I'd spent years absorbing the little digs, the sideways glances, the jokes she made at my expense whenever she felt like showing off. Years swallowing things just to keep the peace, to keep her from spiraling into another one of her moods. But tonight something inside me finally snapped, not with rage, but with clarity. I leaned against the wooden fence at the edge of the yard, breathing in the cold air, letting the hum of distant traffic settle me. A minute later, I heard cautious footsteps behind me. Linda approached slowly, as if I were some wounded animal she wasn't sure wouldn't bite. "Can we please talk?" she asked again. Her voice was small, almost fragile. "All right," I said, not turning to look at her. "Talk." She hesitated, then said, "I drank too much. I got carried away. I was trying to be funny." "You called me a mistake you settled for," I said. Hard to find the joke in that. She moved closer, her shoes crunching softly on the grass. "It wasn't about you. I feel like I've lost something. Like I'm stuck. And that gives you the right to humiliate me in front of your whole family." "I didn't humiliate you," she snapped, then immediately softened when she heard herself. "I mean, I didn't think it would sound so bad." I turned then, slowly, and for the first time she saw it, the cold calm she'd never seen in me before. She flinched. "People heard you," I said. "People laughed." "They weren't laughing at you," she insisted weakly. "They were laughing because I made it sound ridiculous." "It wasn't ridiculous," I said. "It was revealing." She pressed her lips together, shaking her head, refusing to admit what everyone else already knew. I slipped my phone into my pocket. She watched the motion again like it physically hurt her. "Tom, what's on your phone?" she asked in a trembling voice. "Something I should worry about?" "I don't know," I said. "Should you?" She swallowed hard. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you don't get to humiliate me and walk away like nothing happened." I said I was sorry. "No," I said. "You said you didn't mean it. That's different." She reached for my arm again, and this time I let her. Her fingers were cold, shaking. "I don't know what you think you have on that phone," she whispered, "but please don't make a scene." Her words hung in the air, heavy, scared, almost pleading. And that fear told me more than any confession ever could. I stepped away from her touch, letting her hand fall. "I'm not the one who made a scene," I said. "You did." She closed her eyes, exhaling slowly. Can we go home? Not yet, I said. We're not done here. Her eyes snapped open, searching my face, trying to read the intention behind my steady voice. But the truth was simple. I was done protecting her feelings at the expense of my own. And for the first time all night, she realized it. Her breath hitched. Tom, what are you going to do? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The silence between us stretched, thick and brittle, ready to break at the slightest push. And then someone called her name from across the yard, jolting her like a sudden spotlight. She stiffened. I turned toward the house, leaving her standing alone in the dark corner of the yard, hugging herself against the chill she had created. The night wasn't over. Not by a long shot. When I stepped back toward the house, the warmth from inside spilled through the open sliding doors, carrying music, laughter, and the constant hum of people trying very hard not to look curious. I could feel Linda trailing behind me at a distance, unsure whether to follow closely or hang back. She chose somewhere in the middle, hovering like a shadow that couldn't decide whether it wanted to exist. Inside, the engagement party was in full swing again. People held drinks, clinked glasses, posed for photos under a balloon arch, pretending everything was fine. But every time I passed a group, conversations dipped for half a second, then resumed with forced enthusiasm. The kind of shift that always tells you the topic was you. I made my way to the kitchen, set my empty Coke can on the counter, and took a slow breath. I needed to think clearly. I needed to decide how far I was willing to let the truth unfold tonight. And just then, as if fate wanted to crank the tension another notch, Linda's older sister, Meredith, walked in. She took one look at me, then at Linda behind me, and her expression tightened with suspicion. What happened? She asked, crossing her arms. Nothing, Linda blurted out too fast. Just a misunderstanding. Meredith's eyes narrowed. The whole patio heard you, Lynn. Linda's face flushed hot. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. You sounded like a reality TV villain, Meredith said flatly. And poor Tom stood there looking like someone kicked his dog. I wasn't sure whether to be grateful or offended, but at least someone else acknowledged it. Linda snapped. I was joking. No, you weren't, Meredith shot back. You've been talking about that guy for years. You think people don't notice? Linda stiffened like she'd been slapped. I leaned against the island counter, watching the exchange unfold without adding a word. Meredith glanced at me, then at the phone in my pocket. She lifted an eyebrow. Tom, did something else happen? Linda jumped in before I could answer. Meredith, stop. Please. Can we not drag this out more than it already is? Meredith ignored her, stepping closer to me. If she hurt you, you can tell me. Meredith, Linda warned, voice trembling. Drop it. But Meredith wasn't the type to drop anything. She turned to her sister with a look I'd never seen her give before, sharp, disappointed, almost motherly. You know, she said slowly, if you keep pushing a good man away, eventually he'll stop coming back. Linda's lips parted, but no sound came out. I felt a strange mix of gratitude and discomfort. Meredith meant well, but the room was getting too crowded, too hot with tension. I excused myself quietly and stepped outside to the front porch. The night air hit me like a blessing, cool, open, honest. Porch lights from neighboring houses dotted the street. A few cars drove by, their headlights cutting quick slices through the darkness. I stood there with my hands on the railing, letting the quiet settle into me. Moments later, the door opened behind me. I didn't have to turn to know it was Linda. She approached cautiously, heels clicking lightly against the wooden boards. Tom, she whispered, stopping a few feet away. Please come back inside. People are talking. I exhaled slowly. They were always going to talk. Not like this, she murmured. Not about us. I finally turned to face her. She looked smaller somehow, her shoulders drawn inward, her makeup smudged just enough to show how rattled she really was. You embarrassed me, she said quietly. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard her. You embarrassed yourself, I replied. I didn't do anything except react. You walked away. she said, as if that were the crime. You made it look like we aren't fine. We're not fine, I said, and you know it. Her chin trembled. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. What's on your phone? She asked again. Why are you holding it like that? What do you think you know? I stared at her for a long moment, and she wilted under the weight of it. Her eyes flicked to my pocket as if she were bracing for a confession she already anticipated. Linda, I said softly, why does the idea of my phone scare you so much? She hesitated. Too long. Far too long. Then she tried to cover it with a weak laugh. It doesn't scare me. I don't want you twisting things. I'm not the one twisting anything, I said. Her breath quickened. Then what are you holding over my head? Nothing you didn't hand me yourself. She paled. For the third time that night, she reached toward me. This time not for my arm, but for my pocket. I stepped aside. She froze mid-motion, humiliated all over again. You don't trust me, she whispered. You've given me a few reasons not to. She shut her eyes tight, as if holding back something sharp and rising inside her. Please, she said, can we leave? I want to talk, just you and me, without your phone, without my family, without all these people staring. I'm not going home with you tonight, I said. Her eyes flew open. What? I'm not getting into a car with you while you're like this, I said calmly. And I'm not pretending nothing happened. She took a shaky breath, reaching for the railing to steady herself. Then where are you going? Somewhere you can't spin the story before I get a chance to understand it myself. Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again, but no words came. She looked lost, truly lost, for the first time in years. And just when I thought she might finally admit something honest, the front door opened again and Meredith stepped out, frowning at both of us. Linda, she said sharply, Mom's looking for you. Apparently, she heard part of what you said earlier. Linda's eyes widened in horror. Oh God. Meredith folded her arms. Yeah, you might want to go inside and fix whatever you can still fix. Linda glanced at me one last time, face crumpling with panic and something else I couldn't quite define, then hurried past Meredith into the house. Meredith watched her leave, then turned to me. Are you okay? She asked. Not really, I admitted. Didn't think so. She leaned on the railing beside me. If you need an ally tonight, I'm here. I nodded, grateful but weary. The night wasn't done unraveling. I could feel it tightening again, ready to snap in a new direction the moment Linda came back out. And soon, she did. Only this time, she wasn't alone. Linda stepped onto the porch with her mother close behind her. And if there was one person on earth Linda never wanted disappointed, it was her mother, Diane. She was a tall, elegant woman with the kind of face that made people straighten their posture. She wasn't cruel, but she could slice someone apart with a single look, and she was giving that look to her daughter right now. Lynn, Diane said, her voice low, controlled. Meredith told me what happened. Linda stiffened. She exaggerated. She didn't exaggerate, Diane replied. She summarized. Linda's mouth fell open, and I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Diane turned to me then. Tom, are you all right? I'm managing, I said. She nodded with a grim sort of sympathy. Then she faced Linda again. You owe this man an apology. I already apologized, Linda said, sounding like a child caught lying. Not the kind you owe, Diane said sharply. And certainly not in front of all those people. Mom, please, Linda whispered. This is between me and Tom. It stopped being just between you and Tom the moment you performed it for an audience, Diane replied. Linda looked like she wanted to sink into the porch boards. Meredith stood with her arms folded, watching her sister unravel like she'd been waiting for this reckoning for years. I stayed silent, leaning against the railing. I didn't enjoy seeing Linda cornered, but I wasn't about to rescue her from consequences she created with her own hands. Mom, can we talk about this later? Linda pleaded. Diane shook her head. No, you crossed a line, and you need to understand the severity of it. People are staring, Linda whispered, glancing toward the window. Good, Diane said. Let them stare. Maybe it will help you learn some humility. Meredith exhaled sharply, almost a laugh, and Linda flashed her an angry look, though it carried no real fire. Her spirit had been knocked out of her. Tom, Diane said gently, if you want to leave, I wouldn't blame you. I know, I said, and I might. Linda stepped forward then, her eyes wide with panic. Tom, please, don't leave. Why? I asked. So you can explain why the man you called your big regret keeps showing up in your conversations? She opened her mouth, but the words stuck somewhere inside her. Diane watched her carefully. Lynn, she said, is there something you need to tell him? No, Linda said too quickly. Nothing like that. I drink too much sometimes. I talk stupid. It wasn't just stupid, Meredith muttered. It was revealing. Linda shot her a deadly glare. Diane ignored it. Tom, she said, turning to me, why do you keep touching that phone? Linda let out a small choking sound. Meredith caught it instantly. Oh, she said under her breath. Diane's eyes sharpened. What's on the phone, Tom? That depends, I said. Linda stepped forward, actually grabbing my wrist. Stop, she whispered, her voice thin with fear. Please. Diane's eyebrow arched at the panic in her daughter's tone. Linda, she said slowly, why does his phone worry you? It doesn't, she insisted. I don't want him reading something wrong. Reading what wrong? Meredith snapped. Linda glared at her again, but it lacked power. Diane crossed her arms. Lynn. Linda was breathing too fast now, trapped between three people who saw through her. It's nothing, she stammered. Nothing important. Then you won't mind if he explains, Diane said calmly. I looked at Linda. She looked back at me, eyes pleading, silently begging me to protect her from the truth she knew was waiting to burst open. What did you do? Diane asked softly. That question made Linda crumble. She covered her face with both hands. Mom, I don't want to do this on the porch, she whispered. Then you should have thought about that before you dragged your marriage onto a stage, Diane said. I took a slow breath and finally spoke. Your daughter, I said, has spent a long time talking about someone else. Someone she insists she made a mistake not marrying. Diane's lips tightened. Meredith stared at Linda like she'd known pieces of this, but not the whole picture. Linda choked out, Tom, please stop. And because of that, I continued. I started paying attention to things I'd ignored. Silence settled around us like fog. Diane's voice dropped to a dangerous calm, such as, Linda looked like she wanted to run into the street. Mom, don't, such as messages, I said. Conversations that don't match the version of herself she keeps selling. Diane inhaled slowly. Meredith's mouth dropped open. Linda, trembling now, whispered, Tom, please can we talk about this alone? You made it public, I said. I didn't. Diane rubbed her forehead slowly. Linda, she said, what messages? Nothing. Linda cried. Tom is twisting. Stop it, I said. No more twisting. She froze. She had never heard that tone from me. Lynn, Meredith said, stepping closer, tell the truth. Right now? Because the way you're reacting? It's bad. Real bad. Linda's lips quivered, her eyes darting between her sister, her mother, and me. She looked like someone standing on a cliff's edge with no wind left to balance her. Then the porch door opened again. This time, it was her cousin's fiancé, Travis. He looked uneasy, shifting from foot to foot. Sorry to interrupt, he said, but people inside are asking what's going on. A few think Tom found something. Well, something about that guy you mentioned. Linda closed her eyes, mortified. Diane looked at me once more. Tom, she said quietly, is there something you need to show us? I didn't move. I didn't speak. Linda swallowed hard, her voice breaking. Tom, but please, I'm begging you. The porch had gone dead silent. And in that silence, the truth was about to break open. Everyone on that porch was frozen, waiting for the next word to drop like a hammer. The air felt tight, heavy, almost electric, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Linda stood there trembling, her hands balled into fists at her sides, her eyes shimmering with panic under the porch light. Diane looked at me with a stern calmness, the kind only a mother who's seen too many excuses can hold. Meredith watched with the sharpness of someone who'd always suspected something wasn't right, but finally had the missing piece. Travis lingered awkwardly by the steps, wishing he hadn't walked into this, but unable to walk away now that he had. I didn't lift my phone. I didn't wave it around. I simply spoke. "Linda," I said, "you and I both know this didn't start tonight. It didn't start at this party, or with some careless joke. This has been growing for a long time." Her breath hitched like she'd been punched. Diane turned her head, eyes narrowing. "What does that mean?" she asked. I let out a slow breath. "It means I'm done protecting her from the truth. And I'm done protecting myself from it too." Linda let out a desperate sound, half gasp, half plea. "Tom, please, I swear. Let's go somewhere private. I'll explain everything. I'll fix." "No," I said quietly. "You had years to explain, years to fix. All you ever did was bury it deeper." She backed up until her shoulders hit the siding of the house. Her voice came out small, broken. "I never meant to hurt you." "But you did," I said. "Every time you brought up that man. Every time you compared our life to his imaginary one. Every time you looked at me like I wasn't enough for the picture you created in your head." She shook her head frantically. I just felt lost. I thought maybe if I reached out." Diane held up a hand. "Reached out to who?" Linda froze. Completely froze. Meredith's jaw tightened. Travis looked around like he was witnessing something he needed to pretend he'd never seen. I spoke simply, without anger, without theatrics. "To the man she mentioned tonight." Diane inhaled sharply. "You contacted him?" Linda blinked rapidly, tears clinging to her lashes. "It was stupid," she whispered. "I just needed clarity. I needed to know what my life could have been." "By messaging him?" Meredith snapped. "By obsessing over him." "It was an obsession," Linda cried. I wanted closure." I met her eyes. "You weren't looking for closure. You were looking for a way out." She flinched like the words burned. Diane's voice cut through the tension. "How long, Linda?" Linda swallowed, her voice barely audible. "A few times. Here and there." Meredith muttered, "Liar." I didn't need to say anything. Her panic spoke louder than I ever could. Diane stepped closer to her daughter, her tone heartbreakingly calm. "I want the truth," she said. "All of it." Linda pressed her hands against her face and shook her head helplessly. "Please, Mom, please don't make me say it." "Say it," Diane commanded. Linda's voice cracked open like a dam. "I reached out to him a lot. More than I should have. I thought maybe he'd still have feelings for me. I thought maybe he'd say something that would help me understand why I feel so empty." "Empty," I repeated, "while married to me." She looked at me, tears streaking her cheeks. "It had nothing to do with you. It had everything to do with me," I said. "And you know it." She let out a sob. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Sorry," Meredith scoffed, "because you got caught." Diane didn't say anything for a long moment. Her eyes were glassy, not with sadness, but with disappointment deep enough to wound. "Lynn," she said softly, "why would you do this to your marriage?" Linda shook her head helplessly. "I just thought maybe there was something wrong with me, or with us, or with the life I ended up in." Diane closed her eyes. "No, you thought there was something better. Something you deserved more. Something easier." Linda looked at me, her voice cracking. "Tom, please. I'll fix it. I'll delete everything. I'll stop drinking. I'll go to counseling. Linda," I said gently, "I'm leaving." The words cut through the night like wine through broken glass. She stared at me, stunned into silence. "No," she whispered. "No, no, please don't go." "I have to," I said. "Not because of him. Not because of the messages. But because every time life didn't feel exciting enough, you reached for someone who wasn't me. You never reached for us." She stepped forward, then stopped when I took a step back. "I love you," she choked. "I swear I do." "Maybe you do," I said softly. but not enough to choose me over your fantasy. Her knees buckled, and she caught the railing just in time. Diane whispered her daughter's name, but even she didn't try to defend her. Meredith looked at me with a mix of respect and sadness. Travis slipped quietly inside, not wanting to witness another second. I took one last look at Linda, her tear-streaked face, her shaking hands, the sudden hollow in her expression that came from realizing the consequences were real this time. Then I turned away and stepped off the porch, walking down the driveway toward my car. She called my name once, then again, but I didn't turn. The night air felt cold on my face, but clean, honest, and calmer than any moment I'd lived through in years. When I reached the car door, I stopped and looked back, not at the porch, not at Linda, but at the house glowing behind her. Sometimes, I said quietly, more to myself than anyone else, silence says everything. Then I got in, started the engine, and left. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: freedom. If you've listened this far, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and leave a comment. Your support means everything.